All right, so where we left off in our last videos, we really kind of got that layers system set up and showed how to use basic layers. We kind of reinforced how to create projects, how to set preferences for units, and we actually started exploring and using that symmetry. So you might find that when you come in, the symmetry should be working, but if it's not, remember, just go over symmetry. I'll turn it off for the moment. And instead of using the world ones, the very bottom one, topology, is going to work better for this one. Because topology, what it does, and you see how it asks you to pick an edge, and it should be kind of on the edge loop that kind of cuts the model in half, right? So it should be that one, because then, see how it sets the symmetry for this. So you should be picking an edge on this edge loop down the center here. Now, the strength of symmetry, topology symmetry is that it uses the edge loops, right? So one of the things that's really interesting, in fact, I'll turn this off just to show this. What happens if I was to have like some shape drift? And I'm going to really exaggerate, make the shape drift bad. Like you can see here, like, wow, the character really got warped on this side. This can actually happen with world symmetry, right? So you see if I go to turn on world X, you notice how it's working fine here, but then when we get to the areas where the symmetry's been changed, it doesn't work anymore, right? So world and object symmetry really need the symmetry to actually, the shape to be identical on both sides. But what happens is the more you do little tweaks on the shape, right? And like I said, you're gonna do lots of little tweaks on this character. The more likely one side's going to not match the other, right? It's what I call shape drift, right? That one of the sides drifts a little bit. It kind of doesn't keep up with the other side. It's like it gets lazy, right? And world falls apart on that stuff. So world has its uses. When you're doing simpler stuff, it's great. We saw that if it's like fully separate objects, like table, legs and all that stuff, that are just combined into one, it's great. So it's definitely cool. We've used it pretty well up to this point. But you start to build like a car, a spaceship, a character that's got lots of complicated forms, and you're gonna do lots of little shaping. You're gonna find that world symmetry is gonna fall apart. Because world is really just using the world axes and the shapes, the vertice positions being identical to each other along that axis. So the vertices on this side of the 0x have to match these for the world to work. Not true with topology. So if you go to symmetry, topology, it's the very bottom one, right? So it's in the symmetry menu still. It says it's not world X, right? We're using topology. I can go pick an edge, right, on the center edge loop, right, where you kind of cut it in half. So I click on that edge. And you see how it works, even though the shapes are different? That's because the way this one works is it uses the actual edge loops. So as long as the edge loop structure, like an edge loop here, an edge loop here, an edge loop here, an edge loop here, as long as that's the same, it uses the actual structure, the edge loop structure, the topology, the surface itself for symmetry. That's cool, right? So not only is that far more flexible and robust and tolerant of shape drift, but one of the neat things also is that if I select the side I like, so I just left click drag, right, just to kind of select this side, because pick Marquee's on by default. So you just select the side you like, left click drag, just select the side you like. Symmetry will select the other side, that's fine. There is something in the edit mesh menu, because not everything's in modeling toolkit, right? There is something in the edit mesh menu called Symmetrize, right? Edit mesh Symmetrize. And what it does is you see how it takes this side and matches it to the other side? Ha ha ha. Cool, right? Maya Symmetry is one of the better symmetry systems out there. Blender's not bad, but not nearly as cool as this. 3D Studio Max is actually pretty atrocious. I find Blender's honestly a bit better. Easier to set up as well. Moto's great. In fact, Maya and Moto's very, very similar, have the same basic functionality. So they both have really cool symmetry systems with the same basic feature sets. Maya's overall got pretty cool symmetry, right? So just kind of neat, and kind of to explain a little more how topology is working different than world and some of the neat things we can do with it. All right, so now let's actually, that's just me Control S for saving, right? So let's make the head. So I'm going to grab this polygon here, and it actually selects 2 because symmetry's on, right? This is kind of roughly in that neck area. And I'm going to extrude that, right? But remember, Control E is the quick key for extrude, so I'm just going to extrude. I'm going to move this up a bit because this is going to be the neck. So this first extrusion is the neck. I'm going to do a second extrusion that I'm going to move up to make the full kind of head structure, right? The full head structure. Then I'm going to switch to the next face here, right? So 2 extrusions up, right, off of that one. And then we switch to a different face. So instead of that one, we switch to this one, the actual face where your face is going to be, pardon the pun. If that's a pun, I don't know. Extrude, right? And then move this one out, right? And this kind of gives us the face jawline area. So those 3 extrusions are going to give us the head structure that we want. Now you'll notice the shape's a bit off, right? So I'm going to select those 2 faces there, and I'm just going to move them back in. You see how that shape all of a sudden gets a lot closer? We can see kind of maybe the neck area needs to come down a little bit more, right? And at this point I might switch to edge mode, right? Hold down right mouse button, go to edge selection, and this edge right here can come back. That edge right there can come back. And you see how this kind of edge right here, and you'll notice it's this edge because it's going into a 3-star right here, right? So you see these kind of 3 edges, that's a 3-star. That should be your forehead. This one below it, kind of the one kind of right below it, is also connected to a 3-star. That should be your chin. That can come back up a little bit for the jawline. And that can probably come back in a little bit there. But you see how I can kind of move some edges around here? In fact, you'll probably be using edges a lot more modeling this than you would otherwise. Edges are kind of like a nice sweet spot. Like a vertex is a little too small, a face is a little too big. Edges are kind of like your Goldilocks polygon. They're just right? They give us just enough precision to get some better shape here, but they're still pretty easy to select and use. So you'll probably find yourself working a lot more with edges. But you see I'm just kind of moving some of these edges around to kind of mimic the shape of the skull and the head. Remember, you're not trying to get it absolutely perfect. See how there's a lot that I still can't do back there, but there's a good amount that you can, right? Just by moving some faces or edges around to get the forms that you're looking for, right? So this is one of the reasons why I said there's going to be lots of little tweaking on this model because, well, there is, right? And hopefully, because it's going to be videoed, you'll be able to kind of watch which edges I'm selecting, right? I can teach you Maya. I can teach you how to build a box model of character well. I can guide you on shaping, right? It's kind of one of those things I can, point some things out here and there. I can tell you to work with edges. You can see kind of which faces and edges I'm moving in. But to a certain extent, you kind of have to just sit down and shape it, right? There's going to be a lot of you just tinkering and shaping without watching my videos at all, right? But the cool thing is you can see me doing some shaping, and so that can still kind of give you some nice little kind of pointers for kind of where I would put some stuff, right? So not to say that you can't watch these videos again to see where I'm shaping stuff, but there's only so much the video is going to help for shaping. I'm just going to have to kind of do it. Now, in this case, I need a little more geometry, right? Because I need to make the legs now. I've got a basic arm form. I've got a basic head form, right? Got the basic torso. I've done some shaping to kind of get S-curves in here and a bit of taper. You don't want your characters to be made of straight lines because people and life forms just aren't, right? Animals aren't. But right now, I've only got kind of this one big polygon right here, right? And if I extrude this down, it's just going to keep doing this. I'm going to be making a mermaid, right? So I really need some geometry in here that's going to allow me to extrude a leg down, but also have crotch geometry. And in particular, this troll's kind of got a large crotch area there, right? So I'm going to go to multi-cut, and I'm going to put an edge loop down the center of the model. But you see how it's not going down the exact center? It's going to put 2 in, kind of like when we put it on our chair, right? Our chair cushions. So I'm going to put an edge loop kind of right about here, going all the way up through the body. That's a great edge loop because, one, we do need this edge loop more for face later on, so this will help us with the face. Also, it's going to give us enough geometry to do kind of the pectoral shape better and even our butt shape better later on. So that's actually just a great edge loop to have all the way up through the model because we're going to be able to use it on the torso, back, face areas. But you also now see that it gives us geometry for the crotch, but also a face here, because you see how they're still all on the bottom, right? We're not extruding the side one off, we're extruding the bottom one off. I'm going to extrude that one down for my legs. And that'll be basically the thigh. And I can always hit R for scale that in a little bit there. Do another extrusion. This will be kind of the kneecap area, right? Maybe a little bit of rotate, E for rotate. Remember, you can use that view rotate, just like you can use view move, right? You might actually find that that's quite useful, just like uniform scale can be when you're modeling this character. And we'll extrude one more time down. There we go. Now, I usually kind of flatten the foot up a little bit by turning my scale tool on. and just scaling down on the green axis, right? Because as you scale towards 0, it stops. But it also just flattens that shape, right? If I go to low res, see how it's flat? So zero scales are actually a great way to flatten stuff up. I can go back to edge mode, and I could bring this edge in a little bit, this edge. You see I can kind of start to refine that shape a little bit more. Don't worry too much about getting the kneecap, calf areas super developed yet, right? We just don't quite have enough to get that fully developed. So right now we're just more kind of trying to get a little bit of the butt shape in there better. Just kind of have that overall mimic reasonably closely, kind of the S-curve of the leg, right? Believe it or not, your actual leg kind of arches backwards a little bit. And if you haven't taken a figure drawing class and you're like, no, it doesn't look straight to me, guys, do not trust your eyeballs. They're liars. Believe it or not, it's one of those things you have to be kind of trained to see what the actual forms are looking like. But believe it or not, you are not made of straight lines. Your bones don't line up perfectly straight. There actually are these arches and curves in there. And once again, you can kind of see I'm just double checking to see kind of that I don't have any weird slanting shapes, right? So if you're seeing stuff like that, that's just they're too close, right? Move them away, try to make them fairly square looking, even though Smooth Preview's got roundness on, right? So remember that stuff for shaping, right? Now, if I hit 1, that's what the low res looks like, which is horrible, right? Well, guess what? Right, that is kind of one of those things where nobody makes characters that low resolution anymore. They just don't, right? That's Final Fantasy VII, the original, not the remake, guys. That's the 200 triangle characters you saw there, right? That's why you go back and look at them and they look atrocious, right? I can tell you right now, Cloud's character model in Final Fantasy Remake that you can play fully control real time is tens of thousands of triangles. And is vastly higher quality than the pre-rendered cinematic characters were for Final Fantasy VII back in the day. So remember, we're in 3 for Smooth Preview because we're gonna smooth this up eventually. And I'll talk to you guys about triangle count a little bit more once I do the first smooth on this. But you should really try to make sure to get some pretty decent shape on this before you move kind of to the next part of the video, right? So just kind of trying to make sure to get some good shape there. Now, at this point, we're ready for a couple more things. One, we want to put the shoulder loop in for the pectoral girdle. Believe it or not, there's a muscle group of your pectorals, your deltoids, and your trapezius that actually kind of create this little cowl that wraps around kind of your pectoral shoulder area, right? It's often called sometimes it's called the pectoral cowl or pectoral saddle, pectoral girdle. These are all kind of different names I've heard for it over the years. But we want to mimic that, right? Because there is kind of a weird kind of wrap or overlap or insertion, as they often call it, of the deltoids and the pecs kind of working together kind of across this area. So this is one of those times when we really want to start to explore building edge loops in that aren't linear, right? Up to this point, we've just been using multi-cut and putting in linear edge loops. And for like an arm, a leg, a finger, toe, that's great because that's basically the core structure, right? They're just kind of long, extended limbs, right? So extruding for arms and legs and that taking care of the core edge loop stuff, that's fine, just like the main body. That's the way it kind of moves and bends. But the shoulder's a little bit different, right? It kind of moves in and out, but it also spins around. The way the muscles pulls a little bit differently here. So what we need to do is we need to actually put an edge loop in that mimics that for us, right? That mimics how those muscles overlap and work with each other to create the shape and the movement, right? Our desks didn't move, right? They just sit there, they look pretty. Our end table didn't move, right? Creatures, they move, they squash, they stretch, they deform, they bend. So if there's any place that you really always want to have quads, actually like 1 or 2 triangles here and there if it's a non-animation area is really not an issue, but there's an area you really want to have quads and only quads, characters and creatures, because they deform and change shape, they are by their nature a bit unpredictable, right? A desk just sits there not doing anything, right? So if you built it and you've got a couple of n-gons on it in planar areas where the shape doesn't look weird, you're kind of okay, right? Spaceship, car, that's got a lot of curvature. Once again, mostly quads, not because they're going to change shape, but you'll find that works better just for creating the shape you want, not creating a bunch of weird, dense, or unpredictable control of the edge loops for form. But characters, you even double up on that, right? Because not only do they have all that curvature that you expect on like a car or spaceship, but they move. they change shape, they squash and stretch. So we really, really, really like to have quads. Remember, we always want a strong quad bias, period. But in particular for stuff like this, very much so. So I want to put in the shoulder edge loop. Now, I actually like to have one more edge loop in the deltoid here, so I'll just go to multi-cut, and I'll hold down control and put one more edge loop in there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to face selection mode. So I'm going to hold down right mouse button, and I'm going to go to face, right? So we hold down right mouse button, face. Now, of course, remember, we've been using Pick Marquee up to this point, but remember, if you hold down tab on your keyboard, that's drag select, right? It is a button, though. Remember, you can just turn it on and leave it on there, too. In this case, you just hold down tab, and drag select is on. And what I can do is I can select those faces right there. Now, you'll notice that I didn't select these because that's the neck. I didn't select these because that's kind of part of the abdominals and obliques, right? So I selected the ones where and we're going to shape this a little bit better to have a more accurate pectoral shape. But we do want it kind of more where the actual bulk of the pectoral is going to be. And it's that loop, that face loop, that actually goes into the arm. So see how it's kind of part of that loop? But I want to go 2 into the arm, right? So I went 2 faces into the arm. Now I'm going to also hold down tab to drag select this top guy, right? On the deltoid itself, right? That's that group of muscles right there, kind of on the top of your shoulders, the deltoids. So I kind of select those ones up into here. And then we're going to mimic the exact same thing on the back, right? So those faces right there as well, right? So those faces all right there. And see how that kind of creates a nice kind of core edge loop for us, right? If we want, we can turn X-ray shade off for the moment to maybe see it a little bit better. Not sure how much it's helping, but I have 4 for wireframe. You don't have to do this, but you can kind of see it's kind of wrapping around there. Turn X-ray shade back on. But it should be kind of those 8 right into there, that one, and then that one right there. And what we're going to use, and we've seen this tool a little bit, particularly in our clock radio, we showed a little bit of the connect tool off, right? And that was primarily just with vertices, right? We'd select a vertex, another vertex, we'd hit connect, and it'd make an edge between them. Remember, the connect tool, which is right below multi-cut, is basically multi-cut's cousin, right? It is adding edges and edge loops. Connect makes it sound like it's going to bridge or merge, right? The thing, though, is we already have a bridge tool which does bridging. And we already have merge tools which do merging, right? And we've seen those somewhat here in past models, too. Bridge we've definitely seen in many instances, and we've even seen a little bit of merge, particularly on clock radio. But we already have bridge and merge tools, so Connect actually doesn't do anything like what its name suggests. It's actually a version of multi-cut. It's going to add edges or edge loops. Whereas multi-cut kind of does it automatically, just finding the opposite edge, or slicing, or you can manually draw it, as we've seen. Connect uses a selection, right? So what Connect does is it puts an edge loop based on what you have selected. So when I hit the Connect tool, you'll notice it puts an edge loop in that goes through here, and then it goes up and around and down here. And that basically is going to create the pectoral girdle edge loop for us, right? Now you notice the Connect has some options, like you can actually tell it to have more segments. Middle mouse button to give it more segments. We only want 1. You can click on the slide, a middle mouse button, and slide it to different areas, but about 5 is fine for us. And you just hit Enter to be done with it. So when you hit Enter, it actually truly makes that edge loop real. And now you see that there's an actual edge loop. So if I go to Edge Mode, right, hold down right mouse button, Edge Mode, double click, there's an edge loop that goes through there. Now what's cool is this gives us kind of a more accurate shape through here for the way the muscles actually create contour and shape. If you actually kind of feel in there in your armpit, you can kind of feel like there's some muscles that kind of go down from the deltoid to kind of the pectoral area, so it's giving us that. It gives us more edges to actually shape the pectoral here, but also gives us some more right here. So if I wanted to select that edge, I can move this up. And then I can select that edge, and I can start to move that up. And you see how we can kind of start to take some of these edges and move them around a little bit to get kind of a bit more of an accurate kind of deltoid shape there. Now I like to usually add one more here. So I'll kind of grab just these 2 edges across from each other, right? So see how they're, and you'll notice when we do this Connect, it leaves a triangle right here, right? So there's a triangle right there, and a triangle there. But it also leaves an n-gon here and here. Now those n-gons are temporary. They're going to go away momentarily. So believe it or not, those will go away soon, right? So what I want to do is I just want to go to Edge Mode, And I want to select the edges that are kind of on the triangles, right? So there's that triangle there, there's a triangle there, and there's that quad they share. So I select those two edges kind of on the triangles. And we could do a connect for those, because you'll notice connect works with faces, which we just did for the pectoral girl there, the shoulder edge loop. It works with edges, and it works with vertices, which we've already seen the vertex one a little bit. So connect tool's kind of neat, right? You can do some neat stuff with it. And you can now see that this is just making it a lot easier for us to kind of develop this kind of shoulder edge loop form a lot better here. So I can grab some of these edges, and I can start to kind of move them around a little bit to kind of develop those shapes and forms a little bit more. And you can even see this edge now can come out and down a little bit. Maybe even this edge right here. And you see how we can kind of start to round out this pectoral area a bit. So we can easily just start to grab some of these edges, right? And move them around to get better shape for this stuff. And you notice how I'm kind of constantly moving around, like that's got to come in a lot more. So you're going to be switching your views to see the model from different angles to do more shaping. But you also see how that kind of view move is working out really, really well for us also. Very, very useful, right? But we now have an actual shoulder loop in here using the connect tool. And we're seeing that we can use view move a lot more for this stuff, right? Which is quite cool. And we can now see that we've got kind of all of our major forms in here, right? Our legs are in there. Our arms are in there. We've got the shoulder edge loop. This is really important. The shoulder edge loop should be put in before we do our first smooth. And the head structure. So you should have all of this and get a pretty decent shape before you do the final smooth. Now, what I'm going to do out here is I'm going to do my final smooth in a minute. And then I'm going to show you some shaping tools that you have as options, right? They are options. If you don't want to use them, you don't have to. But it's cool to kind of know about them as being available. So I'm going to really quickly save that again. And of course we hit 1 and the low res is bad. But guess what? We were building this in smooth preview, which means that our #1 rule, we were going to smooth it at some point. So I'm going to go back to object mode, right? I'm going to hold down right mouse button, object mode. So we're back to green wireframe, right? Hold down right mouse button, object mode. And I'm going to smooth this. And of course you can hit Q to turn that off. We should have just divisions 1, right? Just the default one. And now you see if I go to 1 for low res, that's what my actual low res looks like. Not bad, right? That's what's really cool about smooth preview when you know how to use it, right? Always, if you're working in smooth preview, smooth your model at some point. But also remember, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? And we've talked about this plenty, right? I've actually marked some of you guys down a little bit for forgetting to smooth your models, right? I kind of take a little bit of points off from your stuff because you really need to understand that your low res should look good. And we're using smooth preview as a shortcut to get us there instead of like some modelers who just do it all low res, right? They end up taking longer to get there because they don't have good rules for working with smooth preview. So I'm trying to instill those in you guys, right? But this is one of the rare times that we actually do it pretty early on. We'll actually do a second smooth towards the end of the model. So there's actually going to be a second smooth we're going to do, but it's going to be kind of at the end when we've done most of this. Now, I'm just going to quickly go to display here, heads up display, and you don't have to turn this on, right? I just want to make sure you guys know about it, right? That I talked to you guys about it. So we go to display, heads up display, and there's an area called poly count. I'm going to check that on. And you see how it actually gives us a polygon count. Now, you'll see that I've got about 65,000 triangles in the total scene, right? That's the totals right here. That's because of the reference model. You'll notice I've got this body selected, and that body is only 1,200 triangles. That is not even close to the budget resolution you'd have for the vast majority of characters and creatures that you'd make in the vast majority of pipelines. Guys, this is super small for PS4, right? PS4 characters, NPCs are, 20, 30,000 triangles easily. Hero characters end up being, 40, 50,000 triangles. We're getting really close to the PS5 generation, right, guys? So 1,200 triangles is nothing for a character in just about any pipeline you're going to be in, right? So ridiculously small polygon count actually in low res. So I'm going to hit 3 to put it in smooth preview. And you'll see it'll go higher because it is a level 2 smooth preview by default. Page down will set it to level 1. And you see that's actually closer to what that's actually what the polygon count would be if we smooth it again. 5,000. So even if we smooth it a second time, we'd be only at 5,000 triangles. So you can start to appreciate that you don't really have to be afraid of smooth preview nowadays if you've got some good rules for working with it, because we're just not in a polygon scarcity world anymore with how powerful our real-time gaming systems have gotten. So you can turn that off or on, right? Display, heads-up display. You can have it off, you can have it on. It's kind of up to you, right? I'll leave it on for now. So I just made sure I'm in 3 again because we are going to build in smooth preview, and we're eventually going to do a second smooth, but not till the end. So don't do a second smooth. Now this video, we're going to do the feet and the hands yet. We're actually going to be doing that on our Wednesday videos, right? So the next video series for later this week, we'll do the hands and the feet. Really today is about getting your scene set up, getting your character built, getting some good shaping going on, and kind of learning that we're going to smooth it. And you notice that that N-gon that was there is gone, right? Remember that N-gon that was a bad boy, right? Gone, all quads. You will notice that we do have some 5 stars here, right? There's a 3-star here. There's a couple of 5 stars in here. If somebody tells you you shouldn't have 5 stars on a character, they are full of crap. You can look at all of the Pixar wireframes that I've put up and stuff. I have tons that I still haven't updated yet. You can find stuff on Naughty Dog models, on Nathan Drake, on Snoke from Star Wars, from Thanos. You can find 5 stars on them. There's natural areas where you're going to have 5 stars from blocked in forms. There's a 5-star up here. The moment you extrude off to create an appendage, you're going to have some 5 stars. They're natural. Do you want your model made of stars? No, right? You do want to be careful. You should only have the stars that are necessary, right? But 5 stars and 3 stars are actually fairly natural in certain parts of your models, right? Remember, stars are just a vertex with 5 edges coming out. Even a 6-star, if it's in between fingers and toes, is usually not much of an issue. Overall, the shape and the animation still work with that 6-star there. Remember, stars are kind of like N-gons. They just, the bigger the star is, the more likely it can become unpredictable, particularly if it's in a weird place for shape or if it's in a complicated animation area. But you're naturally going to have some stars here, particularly 5 stars. So what I wanted to do briefly before we end this video is just show you a couple of shaping tools that you can use. One of them is the tweak tool, and you can actually turn it on with multi-component, right? So there's multi-component right here, right? And this turns on a super selection mode. And once again, you don't have to use this either. You can just tweak with just one of these. But you see how it puts you in a super selection mode where I could select a face, right? Or an edge, or a vertex, right? Now I'm going to turn my move tool on, right? Because usually you're going to use it for move, although it does work for rotate and scale, but W for move. And you see the tweak marquee tool becomes available. Now there is a quick key for that, tilde. It is a sticky key like drag though, you have to hold it down. But the tilde key, it's right above tab, is your tweak marquee. Of course you can just turn it on and leave it on like the drag tool. And what's cool about the tweak tool is you'll notice, in this case I'll just go to edge mode because multi-component's being a little bit picky. Multi-component finds a little bit kind of iffy sometimes on my, but it can sometimes still be useful. And what I can do is I can come in here and I can do a little bit of pectoral shaping. Now, what's cool about the tweak tool is whereas if it's off, I would have to select and then move it, right? So I'd have to select it and then either hit middle mouse button to do a free move or select one of the handles. You'd have to do 2 clicks, right? The tweak marquee tool is just 1 click. When you left click, it selects and moves it, right? So you can easily just come in here and just start to quickly just kind of move some edges up or around to get more shape. And you see I'm kind of moving some of these edges forward a little bit and some of them back in to kind of create a bit of a bulge here. And you'll also notice how I'm kind of making sure to move these in and some of them down a little bit so that we get a little bit of natural roundness to this pectoral. So some edges will come back in, some edges will come forward to kind of create a bump. If they're too close, they get too sharp, right? We don't want that. And you can see I can kind of bring some of these in right here to start to kind of create the armpit shape, right? So some of these can come back a little bit. And we could slowly kind of refine this shape and get it closer and closer to what we want the form to be from all of our different angles. You see I'm kind of bringing some of this in to kind of create a bit of an armpit form there. I brought some of these down and forward a little bit to create the pectoral. And we can even bring these ones down. But you also notice how this tweak tool is really, really cool, right? It really allows us to kind of just more quickly and easily adjust shape. It's actually one of my favorite shaping tools, right? It really gives us the ability to kind of bring some of that form out. But you also notice that by creating kind of areas where the shape's a bit different, where it kind of bulges up and creases back, you can create kind of bony structures. And you notice if I go to vertex selection mode, I can kind of go to vertices. Multi is right there also, so if you want to go into multi-component and kind of be able to grab a vertex, a face. It does work a little weird in X-ray though, so you might find yourself maybe just kind of working more on the vertices, edges, faces modes. But that tweak tool is really cool because it's not 2 clicks, right? You don't have to select it and then move to 2 mouse clicks. It's 1 mouse click. It is based on view move though. So if you turn it off, it's going to use you want it to be on view move, right? If you have it set on one of these other ones, it'll constrain to that. So make sure to click on that center one to have it to view move. But that is a great shaping tool. And you also see that by moving these edges down and up and forward and back a little bit and in a little bit from different views, the shape all of a sudden is starting to take form. And even these ones kind of came down to kind of create the clavicle bone area. So see how, once again, I can kind of show you shaping, kind of tell you to move these edges forward and back and down a little bit to create difference of shape, right? That's the thing, is the form is different there. Some other shaping tools you have. Well, I'll show you some with the move tool, but there is something called soft selection. Some of you guys have accidentally turned this on by accident. We click soft select, right? And B is the quickie for that, right? B turns it off and on. And if you hold down B and left mouse drag, it makes the soft selection bigger or smaller, right? And that's right here. It's in Modeling Toolkit, soft selection, right? And you can type in the values. But you notice soft selection, kind of whatever you have selected, it fades from there, right? The yellow gets all of the transform. The orange gets less of it. The red gets even less of that. The brown and black get very little. And then when you don't see any color at all, and it's back to the blue wireframe, it gets none. But you see how that kind of really kind of has this cool kind of faded, kind of soft, kind of gloopy clay way for moving. And this works for rotate and even scale. And it works for faces and vertices, edge loops, right? And you can even turn it on with your tweak tool. So it works even with tweak. So you might find yourself liking soft selection also, but B turns it off and on. So B is kind of a toggle for you. Hit B, turns it on, hit B, turns it off. If you hold down B and you left mouse drag, it makes the soft selection bigger or smaller, depending if you drag left or right. Once again, do you have to use soft selection or the tweak tool? No. You do see they're kind of neat though. Last but not least, the last tool I like to usually show off as an option is the Sculpt Tools. So I'm going to go to Edit Mesh. And like I said, these are purely optional. The shaping stuff, after the smooth, technically, you can shape whatever way you want to. Probably using the Move tool though. A lot of the time anyways. But in the Mesh Tools menu, there is an area called Sculpting Tools. And these are all the sculpting tools that you'd actually, if you ever clicked on the Sculpt Tools in Mudbox, you'd see those there. These are the Mudbox sculpting tools. The one I want to talk about in particular here is Grab. Now I'm going to go to the Options box for Grab. That way it brings this option up. You see Symmetry is already on working, which is great. You'll notice the size is massive though, right? I do not know why that's their default size. It's ridiculous. Type in 0.1. And also make sure Symmetry is working, which in this case it is. And you see that's 0.1. Imagine what 25 was, guys. That's 0.1, right? But you'll notice that if you hold down B and you left mouse drag, B for brush, just like the soft selection, if you hold down B, that controls the brush size. So B for brush size is actually pretty standard in, and you actually notice that Mudbox used that quick key as well, right? B for brush size. You hold down B and you drag left or right, it makes the brush size different. Now this works a lot like soft selection, but it's based on the actual kind of circle itself, right? And what's cool about that, you see I can kind of pull out a little more of kind of the trapezius area here a little bit if I wanted to. What's cool about this tool is that if you hold down, one, you don't have to select anything, so it's a little more fluid, but if you hold down Shift, it'll actually smooth or soften the area you're working on. So you tweak, smooth, tweak, smooth. If you ever get yourself in a pinch where you've got a bunch of edge loops bunched up on top of each other, you can use your this or even the smooth brush to actually soften them, right? Like if I go up to here, B for brush, and I hold down Shift for smooth, see how it softens that area up a lot and kind of moves those edges away from each other? So that's what's kind of cool about this tool, right? Is you can kind of do some neat little shaping with it, just like you would with soft selection or the tweak tool, but it comes with kind of that smooth function in there as well. But that's in Mesh Tools, Sculpting Tools, and you'll see there's a smooth tool by itself, right? So these are some of the shaping tools you have available to you that if you want to use, you can for shaping this character. Technically, if you just want to use your regular move, rotate, and scale tools because you're more comfortable with them, that's fine. It might take you a little longer, but I wanted to make sure that you guys know about the tweak tool, that you know about soft selection right here, and that you even know about your sculpting tools. These are purely optional though. You are not required to use these, right? They're just, I want to make sure you guys are aware they're available for shaping needs. All right, that'll be a great place to stop for this video.